How many people do you have in your detective department? Or
We have permanently 3 people in the detective bureau, but we've got 2 to 3 other people that assist and do some fill-in work from time to time. So you could say we've got maybe an additional 3 people on a part-time basis.
and how do they become a detective in your department?
It's selected by the chief of police. I basically assign people to that position based on their experience or their previous work that they've done, their skill set. Just kind of look at the job that they do and see if they're a good fit.
In their skill set, what are you looking for?
People that are more thorough with their paperwork, have good people skills. They're able to communicate easily with others, get them to talk. That's always good. And have a pretty good grasp of time management. There's you get lots of different investigations going on. They've got to know, when one is kind of on a standstill and move on to something else, and just be able to really divide their time up as needed.
What are the challenges for the detectives? What do they face on a daily basis?
Oh, lots of paperwork. Lots of paperwork, and there's always more work out there that you need to do that you can get to. They're always working on different things. If we have a robbery, something like that, they have to be a jack of all trades for one. But for example, drug houses, as much as they do, there's always another one out there. There's always multiple ones out there, and a lot of times the pressure that they get from the community is, why aren't you doing something with this drug house? And it's like, because we're working on these 10 over here. There's only so many hours in the day. And always say that to people, but that's really the reality of it. They're tied up on other things, but they're always busy and they always have investigations underway.
Is there anything you'd like the public to know about the detectives that might aid in their understanding of what their work involves?
Well, I think they probably have heard this from us before, but it's just good to remind people that they're always working on drug investigations, along with other investigations. There's always undercover stuff going on. There's always stuff, and I know people often get frustrated with, as I mentioned earlier, why aren't they getting to this, that, or the other? And trust me, they are trying to, and we can't always get everybody, that we would like to. And a lot of our drug investigations are driven by the ability to get confidential informants to work these houses for us. You can't walk up to a drug house as a plainclothes cop and just buy drugs and the rest of them. You can't really. It's very difficult to take down a drug house or arrest a drug dealer, because you can see what appears to be drug activity going on across the street. It just doesn't really hold up in court most of the time. We really are required to actually make what they call a controlled drug buy, having somebody wired and make the buy. And if you don't have somebody that can do that for you, it's very challenging to do that, to make a drug buy, and that's really what you need to get search warrants to take these houses down. So that's a very simplistic, in a nutshell, explanation of why it's tough. It oftentimes, because of the rules that we have to follow, it takes many months just to get one drug house. And you've got multiple drug houses. You can see what the challenge is there for our department.
634, we have a 940 standby. Southwest. We're going on for about 10 minutes. Go for LA.
Yeah, we're gonna need it. We're gonna be right there. Okay.
Do the detectives receive special training?
They do. There's a wide variety of classes available for that type of work, and they continually, all the detectives continually are improving on their training, seeking out additional training and in classes, and that's an ongoing thing. And yeah, it is stuff that's specific to the Detective Bureau. As the criminals become more sophisticated, we have to become more sophisticated as well. Our detectives, other officers in our department as well, our operations commander, they all have a very good relationship with federal and state agencies, and we work with all of them. You know, just about any agency you can think of that's a law enforcement agency on the federal and state level, we've worked with them and continue to.
How does one become a detective?
First, you go through the police academy, gain successful employment, and then through your initial assignment is generally patrol, and you have to demonstrate a lot of different qualities. Ethically and morally correct decisions. You have to show that you're competent, and when I say show, I mean you have to demonstrate it. That your work product should be a reflection of your character, and in the course of doing that, those that you surround yourself with or you're under someone's command will recognize that. And then, you know, depending on what agency you work with, there are certain qualifications you have to meet, and you have to be basically self-directing and very motivated to do what you do, because it's a position in which you could potentially abuse that position. So at least here in the situation that we're in here at the Ashtabula City Police Department, you know, we're trusted in the fact that we make great in-the-field decisions. We follow constitutional law. That we know what we're doing. We don't have to be dictated to or instructed to do anything on a routine basis. It's something that your superiors have confidence in your ability, and they basically trust your decisions and know that at the end of the day, everything was done the correct way. We're taking one male into custody for felony possession of drugs. Yeah, that was something he had on his person at the time of his arrest. So we haven't even begun the search yet.
What's the most time-consuming part of your job?
Doing the case investigation, because the cases are won or lost on probable cause, and following constitutional law, you have to make sure that all your ducks are in a row. Because if you have one mistake or if you make one error, then you lose the case. You have to be very particular in how you do your investigations. Toughest part of the job for the detectives. That's a good question. Probably trying to conduct an interview with somebody who you know is withholding information, and try to legally solicit the information that is the truth as we know it, and try to get a person that we're conducting an interview with to come forward with that information. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of empathy for the person that you're sitting in front of.
Some of U.S. currency under that desk drawer in the master bedroom.
The dresser drawer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just collected that. It's $200.
L1.
Okay. we should probably let DW1 get that item out first. What do you think?
Yeah. What we do is we rely greatly on our crime tip line, and we oftentimes receive anonymous complaints, and then we'll do what Doug is doing right now, in which we'll take whatever information is being supplied and we'll start doing background on it. Whether it's an address or if it's a license plate or something, we'll start accumulating the data that we get. And then once we get some kind of foundation to work on, then we'll go out in the field and we'll utilize different surveillance techniques, whether it be with cameras or binoculars or something, and try to verify what the citizens or own officers are reporting. And the next echelon and the next step would be conducting traffic stops and trying to establish probable cause if it can't be established based on just surveillance. And then we come back into the office and we'll articulate that probable cause into a warrant, whether it's an arrest warrant affidavit or a search warrant affidavit. We'll present that information to either the city solicitor or the municipal court judge or magistrate. They weigh in and determine whether probable cause exists or not, and then we will then put our resources together and we'll go and conduct either our arrest warrant services or our search warrants. Doug and I grew up in a time pre-cell phone, pre-computers, and now we're to the point where if you're not employing all the different social media websites and technology the way it is today, that you're really losing a big piece of the pie. So the difficult thing is for us is trying to do it surreptitiously, and we don't have fake identities or anything, so you have to rely on different resources to obtain, information through social media.
Did we look, or is this whole pill thing just going to the lab the way it is?
Yep. I just opened up the foil to take a picture of what was in the foil,
That's fine.
and then they can give me what they are, and I can look them up on prescriptiondrugs.com or drugs.com, figure out what the scheduling is.
Be done with it if it needs to be sent to the lab. And then once it gets down into evidence, it gets logged into evidence. And then from there, it could go to the lab, it could come back up here to get additional search warrants, like for the cell phones and so forth.
And then following the directions on the back, remove cap, deposit suspect material in the tube, replace the cap, tap it firmly to the bottom of the tube, break the bottom ampule, and agitate. So those are the steps. So you break that.
Scale going to the lab?
Yes. Agitate. And this should be coming back as a teal blue color, like it already is right now without even breaking the top one. That's going to be positive for cocaine. All those little flecks of the substance that I presume to be cocaine have now been field tested, and that's a positive result indicated by the desired change in color from this white material to this light blue, this teal blue color.
How many people in your department?
In the department, we have 23.
I mean, in your detective.
Oh, the detective bureau, we have
Yeah.
4. Myself, Lieutenant Hollis, Lieutenant Saletti, and Lieutenant Dibble. Lieutenant Dibble handles all of our evidence. Lieutenant Saletti is in charge of the detective bureau, and then I work with Lieutenant Hollis, and he and I basically are the field detectives. We do a lot of the field work, follow-ups, and things of that nature. In whatever community you live in, you know what fits in that community, and you know what doesn't fit. So when we try to do in-the-field surveillance, we have to blend into the community as best as we can, and we're tasked here in the detective bureau with a lot of different assignments. So we can't do what I used to do working complete undercover. So, you know, oftentimes it's professional casual type attire here at the office, and we have to plan to not wear that when we go out in the field. So, you know, but it brings its own challenges, but it's different one day to the next for us, you know. So, you know, one day we might be having to appear in court or attending to a trial, and then maybe 2 days later you're out in the field doing undercover, you know, type investigation. I don't know if the folks in the community have a good grasp on what the constitutional law dictates to law enforcement or to a regular citizen, but you have to follow the Fourth Amendment search and seizure law. If you don't, you lose your case. You know, it's not often that things come together in a very short amount of time. Usually it involves a lot of man hours.
What's your most rewarding aspect of your job?
It will probably be through the nexus of the drug investigations that I've done, is seeing people at a drug abuse level, and then seeing them go through coming forward and recognizing that they have some kind of an issue, and then being able to foster a relationship in which they can recover from an addiction. It's probably the most rewarding aspect of my job.
And how do you do that? Do you find somebody that you just made some bad decisions and want to change? Or?
Well, oftentimes the person who is at risk is thrust into our zone of influence, and for one reason or another, they want to get help, and sometimes they simply don't know how to get it. So you foster their relationship, and then you refer them to different agencies that we have in the community. Sometimes it's through the course of a criminal proceeding in which they're offered, and it's sometimes because of the lack of health insurance, they can't get help that they need for their addiction unless it's through some kind of a court-mandated.
What's the most difficult part of your job?
Recently, the most difficult part of my job has been resigning from the SWAT team. I'm getting a little long in the tooth, and the demands on my body and on my family is kind of hindered my ability to maintain the position I had within the SWAT team. And I was a member of SWAT for 10 years, and that was difficult to give up. It took a year to decide, you know, mulling over everything, but ultimately I think it's worked out to be the best.
Have you ever had to investigate or interrogate somebody you knew well?
Yes, I have, and it's definitely a stressor on your professional relationship. But you know, ultimately, if you yourself bind yourself to the ethical and moral code that you took in your oath, ultimately you have to do what's right. And unfortunately, you know, that's what I've had to do. I think one would be remiss if you weren't looking to continue to learn. Doug and I have attended conferences in which we all have a good and firm understanding, but there's that one person or one instructor who will teach you in a different way where it clicks, and you're able to come back, share that technique with your fellow officers, and then be successful in what you do.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the general public, you know, as far as gaining understanding of what you have to do?
I guess my request would be to please be patient with us. Usually it's just 2 officers here in the Ashtabula City Police Department, and trust that when we explain to you that we're doing something, it is going to be done, and it's not necessarily because you don't see a uniform. There is work going on in the background because we operate in the shadows.
The additional force is coming on in January. You'll be able to hire additional personnel, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, will that lead to an increase in the number of detectives?
At first, no. If things play out in a way that it's going to be beneficial and more efficient for the department to take one of those people and make them a detective, we'll get more work done that way. That's something we'll look at. But initially, what our plan is to put 7 people on the road, just to get a better presence on the road.